Thank you very much, Ruth, and good afternoon. This year, we're very committed to strengthening connections. And as Ruth did, please join me in welcoming again our many friends here today, including Melanie Brock from the Australian and New Zealand Chamber of Commerce in Japan, and from the Israeli and Greek embassies, including the Greek ambassador to Japan, Lucas Karatsalis. Welcome. He just arrived 10 days ago, so really a warm welcome to our new ambassador from Greece. This year, we're also very committed to celebrating individual and business success stories, and we have an outstanding success story in store for you today. One which highlights the importance of strong leadership and the importance of science in developing innovative solutions. It is a great honor to introduce our special guest speaker, Andrew Liveris. Andrew, a 38-year veteran of the Dow Chemical Company and a highly acclaimed global business leader, is the president, chairman, and CEO of Dow. His career at Dow has spanned roles in manufacturing, engineering, sales, marketing, and business and general management around the world, including here in the Asia-Pacific region. During nearly a decade at the helm, Andrew has led Dow's transformation from a cyclical chemicals manufacturing company into an enterprise delivering solutions around the world, powered by science and innovation. In 2014, Dow had annual sales of more than $58 billion and employed 55,000 people around the world. During lunch, we talked about how, in the past year, Dow, being a discovery engine, developed 23,000 new products and technologies and has reduced its discovery to communication channel from 7-8 years to 15 months. Really a fantastic story. To put things in perspective, of the top 20 chemical companies in the world in 1990, only 3 existed in 2010. In a recent interview with the Chief Executive magazine, Andrew said Dow is one of the survivors because they were able to pivot on a global scale. In addition to serving on the IBM Board of Directors and serving as chair of the U.S. Business Council, Andrew has been very active in the government, education, and nonprofit sectors and served as co-chair of President Obama's Advanced Manufacturing Partnership Steering Committee. Without further ado, please join me in extending a very warm ACCJ welcome to Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay, and thanks to the ACCJ for having me here. And as a homage to my roots, to the Greek ambassador and to the Australian Chamber, if you haven't gathered, I'm an Australian born and raised Greek. So having my 2 heritages here is tremendous, and I thank you for that. I thank all of you as well, because as Jay said in my bio there, I spent a lot of my career out here in Asia Pacific. In a lightning round discussion today with my erstwhile president of Dow Japan, Peter Jennings. Lightning round being a tradition I have at Dow when I interview others. I give them 5 or 6 quick questions and see what their spontaneous answer was. He chose to use that device on me today, so I need to pay you back. He asked me when was my first time in Japan and what do I remember about it and what hotel I stayed at, and that was actually 1981. And Jay, just to update you on my years of service, this is actually my 40th year now. So I don't know what you all feel about that, but that feels like a long time. And if I put it in the context of Dow, it's a third of our company's existence. So I feel especially privileged as a person from a small outback town in Australia of Greek immigrant heritage to lead this great global American-based but truly global enterprise. It's a privilege I don't take lightly, and I pinch myself constantly that people like yourselves pay money or at least turn up for a meal and to listen to me, even without wine at the table, which we can rectify at some future event. Dow's history here in Japan stretches quite a ways back, even longer, of course, than my first visit. Our first joint venture outside the United States was actually here in Japan. It was forged in 1952, post-World War II, a very, very emergent Japan out of the tragedy of war, and was with what was then called the Asahi Chemical Industry Company. Asahi Dow's a well-known company at that time, existed for a long time, almost 45 years, and was a tremendous asset for Dow in this region. We have since expanded and partnered with storied names like Sumitomo Chemical, Shin-Etsu, Mitsui Bussan, Mitsubishi Chemical, and today the 700 women and men of Dow Japan that Peter leads are leading the industry in terms of environmental health and safety, corporate social responsibility, and developing, as Jay said, our new mantra, our new mojo, sustainable solutions to pressing global challenges. That's our North Star. That's where we're going. That's the mission of the company. They and their efforts are evidence of our commitment as a company to grow here, to invest here, to hire here for the long term. We don't take the travails of the short term as our North Star. We're here for the long term. We believe in the rule of relationship and standing by your friends, especially in their time of need. Our deep roots here and our bright future here is, of course, underpinned by the need to stay competitive. And of course, that's what I'm going to talk about today, competitiveness, not just of companies like Dow, but of countries. Indeed, around the world, and we're in 162 countries, and I visit about 40 of them a year, I would say to you that what you really notice is that countries are really competing like companies, battling for business, looking for ways to succeed and grow in this ever-increasing, uncertain and volatile global economy. Countries that understand business roll out the red carpet. Countries that don't show you red tape. Japan has had a very tough economic and social readjustment in recent decades. But this nation has way too many good assets, too many opportunities, too much intellectual horsepower on its shores to resign itself to yet another lost decade. Abenomics has made important and notable economic progress. The first two arrows of monetary stimulus and active fiscal policy are proving effective. Consumer spending is picking up. And of course, in the imminent future, we hope to see business spending returning and FDI increasing. However, too often, actions like those have relied on what is well known as the Japan Inc. 1.0 model. I remember when people first started using that term, around the time actually when I first started coming here. There's no question that this is old school thinking, that we should move to what should be known as a true Japan 2.0 model, an economy built to compete in a truly flat world, in a true global economy, in a true economy where the supply chains are connecting in ways that we've never seen before and at a ferocious pace. The first Japan Inc. was successful because it forged a partnership at the intersection of business and government. It created a regulatory and business environment aligning all actors in those stages to the goal of economic development, especially by encouraging companies to seek market share abroad while it built its profile back home. That same model cannot work today. Inside-out, asset-centric models are doomed for failure. Of course, one of the other reasons is this is a different Japan. This is a fully developed economy on the old world order. The demographics are well written about and known to be very different. And Japanese companies are different. Even decade-old enterprises no longer see themselves as solely Japanese. Some of them have had operations in countries like the United States or elsewhere for many decades now. These companies do not make decisions based on their nationality. They react to hard and fast, clear-eyed judgments on within the conditions in which they operate and what's in the best interest of their shareholders. So if we need and want, as we all do, investments here in Japan, and there are plenty of reasons for that. A strategy for competitiveness must include more than Abenomics and must appeal to more than just patriotism. Collaboration is still essential, but its application, as I was boring my table with today, before I started speaking, its way it manifests itself is incredibly different. Governments, of course, must create incentives for businesses, both foreign and domestic, to invest here, hire here, and grow here, as Dow wants and other companies like us hope that they do. More red carpet, not just red tape. But the goal is not merely unbridled growth. This is no longer a volume strategy. It's a value strategy. It has to be flexible, resilient, balanced across sectors, and strong at the intersections amongst sectors. An economy that succeeds despite the volatility and the uncertainty that is now the sine qua non new normal. This is the world we're in. Embrace the reality and deal with it. Nothing is going to change that. If anything, it's going to get worse. Competitiveness in that environment has to take on different attributes. And with the remainder of my time, let me describe a few of them. How can Japan move from 1.0 to 2.0, building on the beginning of Abenomics, to become more competitive and usher in a new era of growth? Japan actually brings many advantages to that challenge, but of course many problems still remain. Let me start with the most obvious: energy. The development of unconventional energy in the United States is now well written about. I remember when the term was first used in a conference I participated in Houston. In 2008, the term shale gale was coined. Fast forward 7 years, America is looking at surpassing the world as an energy exporter, with energy security in sight. The price of oil has been severely impacted as a result. Everyone was caught by surprise, except the Saudis, who foresaw it and are doing their very best to put everyone else out of business by keeping the price low. This is a disruption in energy dynamics that none of you predicted. Not one of you. And if you did, you're lying. This is the reality of a new energy dynamic. And it ain't done yet. Japan is feeling the effects. In recent years, you've spent huge amounts of money locking in expensive LNG to be your sole source of energy at prices 5 times that of the US price. Excuse me, I used the word competitive a few minutes ago. That is about as uncompetitive as you will get. To live with that and to say, I'm going to live and die by the slings and arrows of global energy dynamics, no currency depreciation will save you. Okay? The yen would have to go to 300 for that to be competitive. So, what's the truism you're living with? The cold, stark reality that you must embrace. Well, most countries I go to are in your camp. They do not have a fulsome, comprehensive energy policy where conservation, efficiency, optimization of fossil fuels, all fossil fuels, the use of alternatives like nuclear, the development of renewables, whether it be wind, solar, or whatever, and all of the above energy policy where every component of that matters, not just one, not just two. Every single component of that is methodically thought through, and the absolute spend against the next 5 to 10 years of putting all that in place is a national strategy. I can count on one hand how many countries have something like that. And by the way, the US isn't one of them. Okay. Many countries, by not having an energy policy, is their energy policy. they allow special interest groups and established orthodoxies to run the energy policy of the country. Well, last time I checked, countries should do several things. They should have a national strategy on defense and security. They should have a national strategy on feeding their people. And most countries do have those two things. So why are we operating in the vacuum of no energy policy? So what happens in an advanced industrial economy like Japan? Without an energy policy, you are beginning to offshore all of your jobs. Your old industrial supply chain is moving. As you go through and look for ways to add value, input costs are forcing a complete change in what ends up being invested here. Immunizing yourself from these wild swings in inputs can only come by having a sustained set of policies. To have those policies, you need a technology and manufacturing base. To have those bases, you need sound energy policy. Without a sound energy policy, you will lose those bases. Without an industrial base, you won't have an innovation base. Without having an innovation base, you won't create the new supply chains. Without the new supply chains, you won't create the jobs. Are you getting the picture here? For every job created in the service industry, there's only 1.3 jobs created outside the service industry. For every job created in the manufacturing sector, there are 5 to 8 jobs created in the supply chain. High-tech jobs, high-paying jobs. Japan has an advantage today in innovation. It has the research facilities, it has the science, it has the smarts to put in place an innovation-centric energy policy. That brings me to the second challenge, innovation in the new era. Even my own company, with the wonderful opening on how many products that we launched in the last year, 23,000, 15-month cycles, I will tell you that what people miss in this new era of innovation is the rapid pace of digitization and connectivity to the innovation cycle. We cannot run a 20th century model on discovery to commercialization. The intersections that are occurring in this data-rich world of ours are causing things to move at such light speed that your competitors are popping up from anywhere. And if you do not have a competitive advantage on energy, labor, or capital, you're out of business. But if they have a competitive advantage on technology, you will be substituted. You have to stimulate innovation by changing the culture. This is our discovery at Dow. One person at a time, we've had to change the culture. You have to really connect your people to the customer base and let them travel at the speed of live. Not the speed of light, the speed of live. When I was recently moderating a panel in Silicon Valley, I had the founder of Uber, the founder of Instagram, the founder of Salesforce.com on the panel. I turned to the founder of Uber and asked him a question in the middle of the discussion. I said, "Who's the head of your HR department?" He looked at me like I was a Martian. This 37-year-old young man who disrupted the world of hired cars had no clue what I was talking about. They don't have a HR department. What are the business and organizational models that we're practicing in Japan? Are they hierarchical? Are they functional? Is there a distance between the interaction between the customer and the decision maker? How fast does it take to make a decision in the current Japanese paradigm? Well, I don't have to talk far, I just talk about my own company. The revolution we started at Dow was our 10th transformation in the last 118 years. But actually, 3 of those transformations have been done in these last 10 years. The 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th have been done in 10 years. We're on our 10th right now. The Dow people in the room know a month ago we launched a new revolution. Everything is moving fast. Risks are everywhere. Fast cycle innovation is no longer the domain of the big and the affordable and the people who have the money. It's the domain of the small, the entrepreneur, the youthful, the agile, and yes, gender diversity, and yes, people of difference, and yes, people who think outside the box, like the guy from Uber. We've done something about that at Dow. We've hired 22,000 people in the last 5 years. We've lowered the average age of the company by 10 years. The percent of people under the age of 30 in 10 years has increased from 9% 10 years ago to 34% today. We have a lot of people who don't remember the orthodoxy of the last century. They are unleashing innovation because they can and they've been liberated. And yes, those of us who are categorized by the term old, although I think of myself as young, get out of the way. Let them go. The portion of our sales that are coming from new products has trebled in these last 5 years because of them. We're working on clean water, sustainable housing, affordable solutions for energy, affordable solutions on carbon emissions. We're bringing science to humanity's challenges, and they love it. The youth of today want to do that. They want to be involved in working out how we're going to treat this planet better. And companies like Dow, who can be fast cycle innovators, will hire that talent because they want to come work for a company with that mission. Fostering that ecosystem where innovation thrives and where advanced manufacturers want to invest, creating work between the intersection of business, government, and civil society, working at the intersection of markets like food, water, and energy. That's what people want to do, but you have to set up the ecosystem to get it done. A new mindset set from the top. So let me segue to how the US has approached it and how Germany has approached it, mimics the US. How Canada is doing is mimicking the US and has mimicked Germany. How China is doing it as recent as yesterday in a session with Premier Li Keqiang talking about making it in China 2025. It was exactly this topic. No longer do we want to be a big economy, we want to be a strong economy. No longer do we want to sell volume, we want to sell value. We want to move from being at the low end of the manufacturing chain to the high end of the manufacturing chain. We want to blast right through the middle. We are a country of 1.3 billion people, and the only way we're going to take care of our citizens is to let them have a better life, to let them be able to breathe the air, drink the water, eat the food, and know that they have a quality of life. Countries can do it. Countries can. In the US, I co-chair the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership. This has been a two-phase effort. Work Product 1, Work Product 2. People from policy, government departments, people from industry, CEOs of big, small, medium enterprise companies, people from academia, co-chaired by myself and the two successive presidents of MIT on the two work products. What we did is we pulled together an inventory of all the technologies that the US is good at, that it can win at, figured out where they were, in what pockets of the country, what institutions, what national lab, what companies, what universities. And we put together a comprehensive plan to build ecosystems to, in essence, model what Silicon Valley had done naturally. By designing those ecosystems, we enable innovation. We've now launched 6 of these ecosystem innovation hubs at 6 different parts of the country. And yes, in parts of the country that need jobs. Yes, in Michigan, in Indiana, in Ohio, in Tennessee. Putting them in place so that we can get financing around these ecosystems. Putting in place entrepreneurs that are inventing. And national labs joining us and companies like Dow. We are participating in the one in Illinois on lightweight materials, for example. This was the first work product. The second was securing the talent pipeline. We were talking at the table. 500,000 open STEM jobs in the United States as we speak. Yet we're graduating lawyers and bankers. I love lawyers and bankers. There's a role for them. Okay? Many of you in the room. But we need welders, pipe fitters. We need trades like the Germans have developed their apprenticeship program. An exotic welder on the US Gulf Coast right now, a 2-year technical college degree, gets $250,000 a year. If one of you want to change your professions, apply. The talent pipeline is in deficit in the United States. We have unemployment, but we don't have the right skills. Filling those skills with deliberate intervention specifically in community colleges, which were built post-World War II for the returning GIs, retooling those community colleges to provide the curricula for tech trades and glorifying the tech trade profession. That's an example, and borrowing it from Germany. And the last and not least, and one that really centers on this point about Abenomics and what can be done here, is changing the business climate for the better. Businesses engaged on pillars such as trade, tax reform, energy reform, all the things that foster red carpet type policies versus red tape. People like myself and many of the leaders of companies in this room have been involved in those policy developments. I belong to the President's Export Council. I'm part of the regulatory committee that is helping design better regulations. Regulations are great if they're smart, if they involve the regulated, if there's consultation at the front end rather than being told at the back end, this is what your regulation is. Regulation is a barrier to entry. If you have the highest standard, the person of the lowest standard can't compete. That's a good thing. So all these activities, these three, enabling innovation through the ecosystem and these hubs, the talent pipeline, deliberate programs at community colleges, and then fostering a better business environment were put in place. This has actually been copied around the world. Germany has just announced theirs, and they're calling it Industry 4.0. This is their fourth plan to rejuvenate manufacturing and rejuvenate their industrial engine. Developing the strategy is very doable here in Japan. This is what's required. Putting together a vision for value-add innovation based on sound science and manufacturing at the intersections of business, government, and civil society. And then changing the mindset. At Dow, in the 90s, I would call ourselves a footprint company, where all we really looked at were our assets, our physical assets, and we have plenty of those. In the 2000s, I would call us a handprint company. We cared about selling our products, but only those products. If there was a customer for them, fine. If there wasn't, fine. This decade, we've moved from footprint to handprint to blueprint. We're a blueprint company. We care about operating on the planet to provide solutions to humanity's needs. Mindset, engaging your youth, rekindling innovation. That's what Japan needs. It needs it more than ever before. If it embraces the reality of what it started, the green shoots of what have already begun, and comes on top and creates this vision with specific strategies that can clearly mimic from elsewhere, Japan 2.0 will create a Japanese renaissance that will include all of its workforce, where an aging workforce is a resource, where its women are a part of society in its fullest form, and where its young people can have rebirth in this digitally connected world so that Japan's supply chains add value to the world. Doable. Copy Dow if you wish. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. That was way too short. I could listen to that for like 5 hours. That was amazing.
I don't think they would stay. Maybe a glass of wine if they did.
I think Dow is such a lucky company to have you as the leader. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. We'd like to open up the floor for some questions. We have quite an ample question and answer time. So if you would like to start off with a few questions, and then we'll open it up to the press afterwards. But please go ahead and raise your hand. Don't make your question too long. No double questions. No trick questions. And please state your affiliation when you stand up. So please go ahead. Anyone like to start with a question?
Shy group.
Come on, don't be shy. Oh, thank you so much.
Right behind you.
Okay. My name is Frank Witthaus. I'm from ABB in Japan. So I'll keep it a very short question, actually. I think we, as both companies have a long history in Japan, we always try to change ourselves in the country. Can you share some examples of what you have done over the past decade in Japan to adjust to the changing environment here? Thank you.
Yes, I mean, I would say the one industry that has been very slow to change in Japan is the chemical industry. And our previous life as a chemical company only, as mentioned, I think in the introduction from Jay actually, the 1990 to 2010 stat, and 3 surviving chemical companies, Dow being one of them, really means that Japan has not kept pace as a chemical industry in this country, has meant that over those years our strategy in Japan has dramatically changed. Whereas at one point in time we would be a marketer and seller of commodity chemicals here and have co-producer alignments, that we no longer do that as much. We have some legacy arrangements, but in the main, Peter's water business is a solution provider to all the users of water, whether it be the nuclear industry or municipalities. Peter's electronic materials business provides technologies for the device manufacturers, whether they be TVs or smartphones. We are directly connecting to the customer base based on this new portfolio of technologies and products we've launched. So I remember in 2004, when I first became CEO, I asked the question of my then head of marketing and sales. I said, look, I want to see the top 20 customer list of Dow, because I want to be able to visit them. And first thing to make note is it took 3 months to get me the answer. Oh. That doesn't feel good. Then I got the answer, and of the 20 companies, 17 were other chemical companies or distributors. So that's the model we had here, that we thought customers were other chemical companies and distributors. And in the model we were in, if you like, Japan 1.0, that's just fine, thank you very much. But if you're commoditizing and you're only as good as the other supplier, then that's a recipe for margin deterioration. And one other dynamic that's very important, if you took a chart of market capitalization of US public companies and looked at raw material suppliers and looked at finished good producers, consumer good retail companies, pharmaceutical companies, and looked at the value chain in the middle, like chemical companies or pulp and paper or cement or anything like that, and you did market cap in 1995 and market cap in 2005, the ones on the ends had massive increases in market caps. The ones in the middle had massive decreases in market caps, some of them disappearing. What had happened? The upstream consolidated, and fewer suppliers of something means you have price power. The downstream consolidated, fewer buyers of something had price power. If you're in the middle with no differentiation, guess whose lunch they're eating? So the supply chain in the middle was crunched. We lost the ability to buy low price inputs. We lost the ability to sell differentiated outputs, and worse still, we didn't have a customer base we knew. That was the Japan industry. That was us in Japan. So inverting that here in Japan, with Peter being the most recent custodian of that inversion, is a cultural event. But there's one, you can't change the culture without changing your technologies and your products. So we first had to equip them with the tools. I use a baseball analogy, which I can use in Japan, and especially in the American club. So forgive my Australians here for not using cricket because it doesn't work. I now consider us in the 7th or 8th inning of our portfolio change. But I only consider us in the 3rd inning of our cultural change. We are still not where we need to be here in Japan and around the Dow world in engaging the customer interface to participate in the value add, okay? Because I'm Intel inside for most products, okay? Dow's technologies are embedded in most of the things you use. You just don't know it. And more importantly, the customer doesn't know it. So I need to change that. We need to be a much better B2B2C company than ever before.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Also from our guests as well, please feel free to ask a question. In the back there, wait for the microphone.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm David Soy with CDS. And I just had a question regarding kind of energy storage. Of course, Dow is also very much involved in making storage battery materials. And as you can understand, Japan has done a lot in solar, and now they're going to be moving toward energy storage of storing that energy. And I just kind of want to know from Dow what you're doing in that area.
Yeah, so I would tell you our trials in energy storage and energy materials and batteries themselves have not gone well. I think we are discovering, by the way, Silicon Valley, fast fail, right? So that's okay to fail, and maybe that's not in the Japanese culture, but the failure and the size of the failure depends, okay, on the spend. And I would tell you that our innovation engine still suffered 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 5 years ago when we did batteries and energy materials with what I call the grass is always greener on the other side. What you don't know that you don't know, okay, is a killer. So going into new space as we then did, we did it for good reasons. The US wanted a battery industry. We got a massive grant. We discovered very fast that companies in Japan, and for that matter, China, we couldn't differentiate in essence of lithium-ion batteries. That the promise of LIPK and all those new technologies, anode, cathode, was still non-differentiated. So we were late, we were behind the incumbents, and we were spending, and we had better opportunities elsewhere. So we started to slow down, and in fact now have got a very basic business as a battery material supplier to some key companies as an alliance structure, including one here in Japan. On solar, we are in a different space. We believe that solar panels will be eventually replaced by better technology, so we've got a very active R&D program on, in essence, usable solar for housing structures. We've launched a shingle in the US that is a roof material, building integrated photovoltaics. We're going to stay the course in solar. We believe there is a future in solar. But we're way too behind in battery and battery materials.
Thank you. I think we had a question over here. Yes.
And there too.
Eric Sedlak from Jones Day. Japan has had a good run with a lot of very good engineers, probably one of the best stocks of engineers in the world. But like a lot of places, the number of young people who are interested is declining. And I guess I wanted to ask you, if Japan's going to continue to develop innovative technology and intellectual property, what do government and industry need to do to encourage people to become scientists and engineers?
Yeah, we were actually talking about this at the table. I mean, I am long past the conversation that says government and or universities are going to do it without business doing it with them, for them. So it has to be business-led. And so maybe that starts with, I don't know how much of that happens here, but in the US and Europe, where we have substantial presence, US as an example, we noticed your point. We noticed, I remember going into some business schools trying to convince engineering undergrads who were doing MBAs to not go to finance, to come to manufacturing instead. That's way too late. So you've got to really work at the undergraduate level, in fact even before that in the high school level, which is a whole other topic. I'll give you one factoid on that. 40% of all US chemistry teachers at the high school level have never taken a course in chemistry.
Oh my goodness.
Okay? So it tells you how bad the feeder pipeline is. So this re-engaging the whole education profession to get the technical pipeline fixed is a big topic. But the university engagement, what we did is we took matters in our own hands, and instead of working as we were with over 80 institutions, we prioritized and picked 15 in the US and awarded grants of a total of $500 million, which is not an insignificant sum, over a 5-year period to rebuild their chemical engineering departments. And because one of the mistakes that you make when you teach at undergraduate level is you make this mistake that you try to teach a lot of things to create a multi-purpose type engineer, like an industrial engineer or a biochemical mechanical engineer. Well, I have no use for a biochemical mechanical engineer. I want a chemical engineer, okay? I want them to understand thermodynamics, catalysis, multi-stage distillation, okay? I want them to understand Bernoulli's theorem. I want to understand how to apply it, okay? Chemical engineering is a noble profession, but we had lost it. The chemical industry had died, so we had to rebuild it. And these 15 universities have done it, and we've got exclusive arrangements with them in terms of the supply. So it's still a country issue in the US, but we are fixing it ourselves. And I mentioned that when I talked about the community colleges, in terms of the trades. So we're fixing the trades ourselves. What we've noticed in the US in this AMP thing we did for the president is actually there are a lot of companies like Dow doing exactly this. So how can we actually do it as a coordinated group of people? So Dow, Alcoa, and Siemens have an arrangement in the US now on apprenticeships where we're sharing the training budgets. I think that's the future. I think business-led, it's our supply chain after all. I mean, we should be spending time in it. I mean, we just can't assume government's going to do it for us. And I think that's, I don't know what Japan's situation is, but that's what we've done in the US and Europe.
Thank you. I think there was a question over here, so please.
Hi, Cameron Brett from Randstad, Japan. Thank you very much for your inspiring discussion. And my question is about innovation. You spoke about traveling at the speed of live. And then you just recently touched on failing fast. Now, as you know, in Japan, failure can be a dirty word. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on how you can change the mindset or how you can create a culture where there's a freedom to fail. And actually failure can be not necessarily rewarded, but at least accepted.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question that transcends Japan, and I'd love anyone in the room to give me the wisdom that we probably can all benefit from your question, because let me use my own children as an example. I mean, I've already gave you my profile. I'm the first to go to university in my family. My parents were immigrants. They came from, World War II ravaged islands in Greece that had nothing. They landed in the shores of Australia. They had no professions. They had to self-teach themselves. They raised their kids, me being the first, and put them through university, and then I get the privilege of using that degree. And, obviously, that's not the story of my kids. My kids have lived in multiple countries. They're living, compared to my life, a pampered life. They have very easy trajectories. They don't have to worry about things like, the basics. They have, we try hard not to spoil them. I mean, that's clearly the case, but they're not hungry. Okay, their ambition is there, but they're in a much more cuddled environment. There's a term in the United States called helicopter parents. They're over-parented. My wife and I spend a lot of time making sure nothing goes wrong with them. I will get a text on, something's wrong with my X thing, and so Dad fix it or Mum fix it. I mean, that's what's happened to developed societies, is their kids aren't growing as hungry as the parents did and the grandparents did. And generationally, we would want that, right? I mean, who wants to grow up hungry and, full of all the massive issues of life as we see in so many countries of the world? And so the ambition deficit that creates if you're not hungry creates this whole notion of, well, look, I'm going to live a fine life. Why put myself at risk? So if that's the culture that we're growing our kids in, no wonder there's the rise and fall of great civilizations. If you're a student of history, as goes ancient Greece, as go ancient Rome, as go ancient Egypt, as all these great civilizations got to the peak and atrophied. What causes the American civilization to have legs? Anyone got an answer to that? I mean, you may argue the US is atrophying, and we can have that debate.
Immigration.
But what did you say?
Immigration.
It imports people who want to achieve, who are hungry, who have this drive. They come from Ethiopia. They come from, Colombia. They come from soon Cuba. I mean, they're coming from places where they don't have what America has, and so they want to be a part of that. That's a phenomenal energy. And it brings a vitality, and it brings risk takers to try this and try that and try this. That's why normally it's the immigrants and the children of immigrants who are doing all this innovation. So what's Japan's strategy around that? Your homogeneity is one of your strengths. You are an incredible, you being the Japan, and not a lot of Japanese in this room, but those of you who feel an affinity for Japan, which hopefully is all of you in the room, I mean, that's the great attribute of Japan, which is an unbelievable sameness to approaching issues of national importance. But inside that culture is don't break out of the norm. Now, how can you rewire that? Well, at Dow, I have the same sort of issue. I have been around 118 years. Not me, but in the company, right? And that would be quite an achievement. The rewiring of the culture is something that troubles me every day. Last week, we launched our intranet social media site called Yammer, where we are digitally connecting me and all my global leaders are joining Yammer to connect with every employee in the company. Now, that might be scary. I mean, you don't want to hear from every employee in the company, and you certainly don't want to reply to all of them, because that'll be, your inbox will be flooded. But youth wants that. Youth wants to test the older generation. Actually, most of them think we screwed up. Okay? So I think you've got to enjoy this energy and make it your energy. And I think if you can do that, you can maybe not fail fast or not even fail, but you can take more managed risk. I said 10 transformations at Dow. Okay? The 7th, 8th, and 9th, we bet the company. You try betting a company at $55 billion of size. Okay? I mean, the scars on my back and the gray hair, I mean, I would tell you, you've got to change. 4 paradigms of leadership that someone taught me. I mentioned one of them in the speech. Embrace your reality. Embrace it. You may not like it, but embrace it. From that reality, make choices. I mean, don't just embrace the reality and just sit there with it. Make choices. After you make those choices, you personally lead the change, because you've made the choice. And after you've made that decision, build the best possible team around you to execute. Those 4 paradigms, today, very fast cycle. Previous generations, that could be a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. Forget that. Today, that circle sometimes is daily, if weekly. So you've got to teach people how to operate in this incredibly uncertain, volatile world by role modeling it yourself. And I think that's one of the hardest things we've had to do at Dow, but it's doable. It's doable.
Thank you very much. One quick question over here, and then we'll have one from the press. So please, here, Mike.
Thank you very much. Like Ruth, I could stay here for hours and hours. So thank you for the inspiring answers and everything else. I'm Jakob Edberg. I'm Managing Director of GR Japan, which is a government relations consultancy. And you talked a lot about moving from red tape to red carpet. And of course, that's music to our ears as government relations consultants. And I just wanted to know your view on the role of a multinational company like Dow in sort of setting the policy agenda, working with the government in shaping the environment. We see in Japan normally companies that let the government decide and then they fall in the box and let them do what's been decided for them. We have slightly different philosophy in our company, as you can imagine. But I'm very interested in hearing from the very top of the multinational company how you see this issue as you engage with the government for growth.
There's another quote that I'm prone to using, which my team knows what I'm about to say, that answers your question, I think, in a humorous way, which is, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So you better be at the table. Mm-hmm. My biggest surprise becoming CEO, nothing prepares you for the CEO job, nothing. So and I think that's true of any leadership role of any size, substance. So you get to the CEO spot, you expect that what got you there is what you're going to need to succeed. Absolutely, totally wrong, okay? Your operational capability is what got you there, and frankly, that's what you probably like to do, but actually, that's not what you do. This build team is what does it, and that's a work in progress. So the top 200 jobs in 2004 at Dow, to today, only 4 people are in common, and I'm one of them. So I've had a complete refreshing of the top of the organization to build a culture that actually totally can operate. What I do, and what half a dozen people around me do, is work the policy agenda of all the jurisdictions we operate in. If you do it well, and are at the front end of it, and you earn the credibility of governments and policymakers and NGOs and all the various constituencies that constitute a community, which sometimes is called a country or a village, if you can do that, then you earn the right, okay, to operate in that community. That mindset shift, working policy, business, I mean, growing in Asia was very helpful for me, because out in Asia, most of the governments actually were very involved in business. And in Europe, I think to this very day, I mean, the Chancellor of Germany or the President of France, when they go on delegations around the world, they take a lot of business people with them. They understand that one of their roles when they go visit a Japan or a China is to be a promoter of their country's business agenda. The US has a very strange view of that. US has a view, sometimes called Democrats and Republicans, that says no government, a lot of government, small government, big government. That view is nonsense. What you really want is smart government,
Right.
which may not be necessarily true a lot of the time. So what do? Moan about it? You could, but you should help them make smarter policies. Them being who? These are women and men who give their lives to public service. We should celebrate that with them. They're willing to put up, and certainly in the US, and about Japan, a lot of media stuff goes on. These poor people are killed in the media on a regular basis. This is not an easy job to do. Help them. By helping them explain to their constituencies the benefit of international trade. You know, I'm going around factories in the US soon, very soon, to sell the TPP arrangement that Japan is part of to my factory workers. So they can understand that having an open trade relationship with countries like Japan is a positive for their job. Now, when I do that, am I CEO or am I a politician? What am I? Right? So this is the thing that I think people just don't understand about the roles we have. It's really very heavily engaged with the communities that you're in. And all those communities are equal. My shareholders matter to me, okay? But I'll never have shareholders if I get the other 3 communities wrong. Governments, employees, and of course, our customers.
Thank you very much. All right, final question from the media, please. Go ahead.
Hello again.
Thank you very much. My name is Katsumori Matsuoka from the Chemical Daily. I think some of the answer to my questions I already included in your presentation, but I have some questions.
Sure.
When you compare to a Western chemical industry, especially structure, and the Japanese one, there is a big difference. The difference is that while US and European chemical industry have been transformed, integrated a lot, especially significant number of players has been reduced in the US and Europe. But Japan still has many players, and the structure of the industry is fragmented. Well, regarding to this, how do you analyze this uniqueness of the Japanese chemical industry? The second one is there any specific reason for the Japanese chemical industry has this structure? This is the first question. The second question is about Dow. Just one. Second question is about what subject or theme you have discussed a lot most when you made the decision on the current transformation, buying raw materials, selling your some commodity businesses. Thank you.
Second one is easy, and that is, again, using a very popular phrase, Friedman's world is flat. Mm-hmm. When you realize that companies entered our business, as I described the value chain being compressed, when they entered our business because they could license technology, they could be state-owned enterprises that had subsidized capital or subsidized feedstocks. If you didn't have differentiation, you're dead. So most of the dismemberment of the US chemical industry and the European chemical industry was driven by their inability to invest in R&D and innovate for the new products to replace the margins that were being lost in the commodities. That was if you can imagine a car on an expressway and you have this big semi-trailer truck right behind you called commodities, and your car was called specialties, okay? That truck will overrun you if you don't have the budget to spend to go faster. Innovation, when you're small, is almost impossible because of everything we discussed. Innovation's hard. It's sustained over a long period of time. To get to this many thousands of new products takes, in our case, 8 years and $9 billion. I mean, you really have to be committed, especially against a shareholder base that wants a return every 90 days, okay? You try and do that. Try and get investments of the type I'm talking about. If you're a little company, you can't get there. You don't have enough resources. So the dismemberment of the US industry was the inability to compete on a commoditizing world. As we globalized, the chemical industry was homogenized. So private equity companies and state-owned enterprises ended up buying. And then we, Dow, became a consolidator. We bought Union Carbide, my good friend in the audience who ran Union Carbide Japan, as a consolidation play. And then we bought Roman Haas as a value-add play. Buying of size in Japan is doable to your first question, but you have a major problem with the orthodoxy of employment, not unlike the Germans. When you restructure, I'll give you my stat. I mean, Dow is, what, roughly $57 billion and 55,000 people. In 1990, we were $20 billion with 60,000 people. And we swallowed Union Carbide and we swallowed Roman Haas. People get displaced. People getting displaced is not a bad thing if they can replace themselves and go into other industries. An agile work market does that. This is not a flexible work market. So I think the Japanese chemical industry finds it very hard to find a way to consolidate its value chains. But here's the good news. I hope you, I don't want to leave it on a depressed note. I hope you saw in my speech, there is one thing that Japan has, and its chemical industry definitely has it. It has technologies. Some of the better technologies in the world are still in place here and invented here. And one of the reasons for that is you have a globally competitive automotive and electronics industry. Even though the Koreans are trying to kind of displace you, some of your great companies are still very inventive. So that should be an opportunity for the Japanese chemical industry. It's an opportunity for Dow Japan, okay? So we're going to do it. Hopefully I answered your question.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for your presentation today. I think we're all going to study welding and stay at the table for sure. Absolutely. So a few final words from Jay.
Thank you.
A few remarks. That's the light.
Oh, it's a light. Here.
Not too long ago, you were quoted as saying, "Perfection is a journey, not a destination." Thank you for sharing that journey with us today. Thank you also for leading by example and demonizing impressions of what a CEO can do. You raised a number of questions for all of us in the room. What's your North Star? What's your value proposition? Of the three mindsets, being a footprint mindset focused on assets, a handprint focused on products, or a blueprint mindset where you care about being a citizen of this planet and rekindling innovation, which are you? Thank you as well for asking how each of us will rewire ourselves to find that hunger that will fuel innovation. Thank you as well for stressing the importance of science to today's challenges, bringing science to today's challenges, and encouraging all of us as business leaders to find ways to encourage and help the next generation in pursuing STEM careers. Thank you as well for sharing Dow's story and how, under your leadership, its changing mindset has been finding today's value add. Thank you so much. On behalf of the Chamber, I have a certificate of appreciation and a small gift. And please, everyone, join me in giving a large round of applause, thanking Andrew for his wonderful remarks.
Thank you.